Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about Laurel and Hardy. My gosh, guys and gals, it has been so long since I wanted to cover these gentlemen. I'm absolutely happy that you are here. In case you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button to let me know that you want to see more Laurel and Hardy, as well as check out my other classic TV shows and movies that I cover. I think you'll absolutely enjoy them. Today I'm going to be covering why Laurel and Hardy are, in my opinion, the best comedic duo of all time. Now, you may come up with more reasons than me. I just pulled up 6 that I believe are absolutely necessary to talk about these men, who I consider pretty much the legends, the idols of comedy. They simply cannot be matched. Now, these 6 are in no particular order. Let's start with the first point. That is that, of course, Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy complement each other perfectly. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, that is that they are 2 very different characters that are friends, and pretty much in where they're lacking, the other one has. So Laurel is the one, in my opinion, who's the risk taker. He sees the world in an innocent way. He might do something without fear of something because of that innocence. Now Hardy, he's the one that deals with the word head on and sometimes looks at Laurel as the crash test dummy, as the one who let's have him try out and see what happens. So that complementariness of both characters is what works so great. Hardy's also the one who often meets the resistance of the world, although sometimes Laurel feels that as well. Now, I really want to point out the innocence of Laurel. That is, he has a good nature, good heart. Not to say that Hardy doesn't, because he also does some very good things, but Laurel's innocence is pretty much see-through. There is no hiding of his character, and that is something that we absolutely love. Hardy's more of, he wears that mask. He wears that mask figuratively of being the strong and leadership type, although deep down inside, he's probably as innocent or even more innocent than Laurel. And I just wanted to clarify, Stan Laurel is the tall, skinny one, while Oliver Hardy is the larger, more, of course, chubbier individual. And that's for those people who don't know. Now, number 2, Laurel is the perfect slapstick comedian. And what I mean by that, it's almost like his body's like rubber. He falls to the ground, he rolls around. He's the one who slapped. He is kind of the quote-unquote dummy here. He is the rag doll. And that is perfection. Why? Because he has, kind of goes back to what I said in the first point, his complementary character, which is of course Hardy. Now Hardy is the perfect straight man. They're both necessary for the comedy. Now what I mean by straight man, that is a popular term meaning, of course, the comedic. You have always the comedic and then the straight man. They kind of pioneered, no, they did pioneer this concept, the idea that one is always upset and mad and angry and has a plan, and then we have the other guy who is the one who fouls up the plan, the one who messes it up, the clumsy one. And to me, that is such a great moment to be able to have that physical comedy. And they were both very good physical comedians, but of course Laurel, the funny silly one, and then of course Hardy, the more serious and straight man. Number 3, you can't mention Laurel and Hardy without mentioning the breaking of the fourth wall. Now, the fourth wall, of course, as you know, goes back all the way into the Greek times where they had live theater. And, of course, the play would be set in this idea of 3 walls, and the 4th wall would always be invisible, the one that we can see through to see in on the action. Hardy would look at the audience directly into the camera, directly into our eyes, acknowledging, hey, look at this craziness. Hey, look at this buddy of mine who did something really dumb. And that is something that was continually followed by other characters. It's even done on I Love Lucy one time by Tennessee Ernie Ford. It's done many times on Gilligan's Island, of course, by the Skipper, and many other shows as well. It's just one of those rare moments where they acknowledge us as an audience. Number 4, they were sanitized. And of course, that means what it means. There's no politics in Laurel and Hardy, and this was very early on in the film era. They didn't tell you what you need to think. They didn't tell you what you need to do. You just saw into their story. You saw what was happening. They made you laugh, and that's something that's often lost today, but that's something that was pioneered at that time, continued on with people like, of course, Lucille Ball, even going through Gilligan's Island, and many other shows, but then that started to gradually change as time went on. Now moving on to number 5, you may ask me, Rick, what is your favorite thing that you saw often appear on Laurel and Hardy films, and that is undeniably whenever Laurel would start crying. I don't know why, it is one of the most hilarious things in my brain. When I see this, I just start giggling and laughing to myself. His cry, his look, the way he contorts his face, the way he scratches the top of his head, and he's just so helpless. He looks at us and he goes into this kind of panic attack, and Hardy's trying to console him but also is having a panic attack. I love it. They're out of control, and it's one of my favorite moments. Remember that this formula was later copied by other shows, some that I cover on Gilligan's Island, of course, and even on I Love Lucy. Lucy would regularly cry on the show. It would be seen on The Honeymooners. That is where one actor would cry or get very upset, and then later on there's the straight man or the straight character who would get angry or upset that this individual was crying. It's really funny. And of course, last but not least, probably the one that hits home the most, you may have missed, and that is that they both characters completely relate to us. What do I mean by that? Well, remember, anytime we see Laurel and Hardy, most of the time, in fact, I would think every single time, but let me just stick with most of the time, they're not the elite. They are working class individuals, very similar to us, something that people at that time could have related to. Oftentimes, they were illiterate. Therefore, they were at a disadvantage in their world, in what they were doing. And that, to us, makes us feel a little bit of pity for them. A little bit of, hey, we relate to what these characters are doing because we have been challenged in many different ways as well. And so they were trying to make their way, as I mentioned, in the world. They're trying to face these life challenges head on. And that's something that we're excited to see, versus if we would have seen individuals who are in the elite and they have all this money and all this wealth, and we're seeing their stories. It might be interesting, but it's not as relatable to us. So I hope you enjoyed these guys and gals. Let me know if I missed anything in the comments below. If you want to see more Laurel and Hardy, as I mentioned before, don't forget to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to stay positive, and most importantly, be hopeful. Thanks as always to all the Patreon supporters, especially the executive producers for this video: Andy B, David D, Ricky, and Joe R. Thank you so much to everyone.